You're in the middle of your meal and you're starting to feel full, and there's a thought that passes through your head, maybe I should stop, maybe I should not finish what's on my plate, I'd like to stop in this moment. And then before you know it, you have finished your plate and you feel uncomfortably full. And this has happened to you many times, and you keep asking yourself over and over again, is there something wrong with me? Why can't I stop when I'm feeling a sense of fullness? Why do I feel this need to clean my plate? And why all these feelings of guilt after my meal? I can tell you, if you are experiencing this, you are most certainly not alone. And in this video, we're gonna get into why you're feeling so much guilt, why you feel the need and or have the experience of finishing your plate even though you don't really want to. And I'm gonna offer you some specific things that you can do if you are stuck in the cycle of feeling like it's bad to not finish what's on your plate, and or you just can't get out of it because it's hard to know what to do. And I wanna offer you some specific things so that you can break that habit. Be sure to check out the free resource that I have for you below. It is a journaling and activity calendar, all related to helping you to heal your relationship with your body. It takes so many resources in order to get to a peaceful place with food and our body, and I believe that this can be a really helpful support. But before we dive into things, my name is Catherine Metzelaar. I'm a registered dietitian, certified intuitive eating counselor, and eating disorder specialist, here to help you create peace with food and your body so that all of it takes up less headspace and you can live your life with more presence, joy, and freedom. You definitely want to take a listen to this. So at this point, you know that it's an issue. Every time you eat, or often when you're eating, you're feeling like you need to finish what's on your plate. And you're wondering, or maybe have suspect about where it's coming from, but you're not exactly sure. So let's talk about it. What are the common reasons that you feel like you need to finish what's on your plate? Common reasons why you feel guilt, common reasons why you feel like it's a bad thing if you're not finishing what's on your plate. And then we're gonna talk about some things you can do if any of these happened to you. If you grew up in a household where you were required to finish what was on your plate, if you grew up in a household where guilt was used in order to get you to finish your food, if you grew up in a household where in order to be able to get access or privileges to other things, you had to finish what's on your plate, this in adulthood can lead to a feeling of guilt about not finishing what's on your plate. Separate from how you grew up, it's important to look at a couple other factors that can contribute to you feeling like you can't stop eating what's on your plate even though you're feeling full. One of them is your history of dieting, restricting foods, cutting out foods, and this is because physiologically you don't know when you're gonna get food next. So you have the feeling like, I need to finish it. Even though you're like, wait a minute, I am full, I wanna stop, you can't stop in the moment. The other common reason is not having consistent access to food. Now, of course, this applies to dieting because even though food is around you, you don't have consistent access to food. But what I mean more specifically is if you have experienced either now or in the past any kind of food insecurity where you didn't have access to food or access to consistent food, this then can lead to patterns of feeling like you need to finish what's on your plate because that's how you survive. That's how you got through things. You didn't know when food was gonna come next or how long you needed to wait until your next meal. And so food insecurity and not having access to food is common. So if you've experienced any of those things in your household and or have a history of dieting or restricting foods and or have experienced food insecurity, it's likely that you have difficulty around honoring your fullness, have difficulty with not finishing your plate. So what do you do? What's the next step? The first thing is to stop dieting and restricting your food intake. Now, I know this is easier said than done, and I've got some other videos to support you around this, but the reality is if you keep restricting your food intake, if you keep not giving your body what it needs, if you keep saying you can have this but not this, and all the other rules and guidelines and restrictions that are involved in dieting, you are going to continue to have the experience of feeling like you can't stop eating when you're at your meal. The second thing is that you need to practice honoring your hunger over and over again. And why is this? It's because if you are continuously denying your hunger, this is another way that your body knows, okay, I don't know when I'm gonna get food next. And so when you sit down to have a meal, you are likely going to override any cues of fullness. And purely from a physiological perspective, you are not going to be able to stop. So a way to counter this is to keep honoring your hunger even when you doubt it. The third thing is that you're going to have to challenge the messages that you received growing up from your parents. You can do this by getting curious about what are the kinds of things that you were told growing up? What was your feeding and eating environment growing up? What was the table experience like if you ate at a table with your family? Were you expected to finish what was on your plate? Were you guilted into finishing what was on your plate? These are all important questions that you can ask yourself so that you can understand what are the messages that I need to challenge. Me finishing what's on my plate, for example, is not going to save someone else in another country. Me finishing what's on my plate is not going to do anything besides make me feel uncomfortable, but you have to challenge those messages that you receive from your parents by first getting curious about what were the messages that were given to you growing up. The fourth way is to find ways to get creative with leftovers. I know you might not be a leftover person, not everybody is. Sometimes this can mitigate some of the guilt and bad feelings that we have about not finishing what's on our plate. And there's never anything too small to put away, in my opinion, and especially if you can add it to something the next day or the next couple of days. There's all kinds of great resources on the internet about how to use leftovers, and this can relieve some of the feelings that you might have in the moment, that you can put it in the fridge for later. The fifth way to break the habit of feeling bad if you don't finish your food is to be extra compassionate with yourself. Be the parent, the caregiver, the adult to yourself in your life that you didn't have growing up when you can't finish what's on your plate. Now, this requires that you actively engage with and talk to yourself in the moment by saying things like, it's okay, sweetie, you don't need to finish what's on your plate, or it's all right, we can put this away, or no worries, I'm glad you're respecting your fullness, and other compassionate things that you can offer to yourself now that you didn't get growing up to give yourself permission to not finish and clean your plate. And the last and final way to break the habit of feeling like you need to clean your plate is to get extra curious. I can't emphasize this enough. Get curious about the voice that shows up while you're eating the meal that tells you that you need to finish it. Now, it's not always super clear, it's not always language, it might just be a sensation or a feeling, but try to be with that messaging, that feeling, that sensation, and get really curious about it. You can do this by asking yourself, what is it feeling like as this voice shows up? What's it telling me? Is this a familiar feeling or something that's new? Asking yourself these questions can give you a lot of insight, because oftentimes we are flooded with memories or remember the experience that we had when we were younger. Knowing that information when you ask those questions can help you to take the next step. If you start to remember, oh my gosh, this voice sounds just like my mom growing up, well, that can give you a direction to head in and knowing what you need to challenge next to break the pattern and habit of feeling like you need to clean your plate. In summary, the experience that you have growing up, the feeding and eating environment, as we call it, has a huge impact on your relationship with food as you get older and as an adult. And it's not the only thing we want to think about. Okay, what was food like growing up? How did the messages that I received give me a feeling like I need to clean what's on my plate and I'm a bad person or I'm not doing a good thing if I don't finish what's on my plate? And we also need to think about, okay, what are the experiences that I have had with dieting and restricting food, and could that be impacting my eating experience? And then the last one is thinking about food insecurity, and if you've experienced that, how that might be impacting your experience with feeling like you need to clean your plate. As with all of this, it is a journey and it is a winding, curvy, non-linear, it is not a straight journey. And the more that you can dig, the more that you can understand some of these questions, the more that you can try to challenge some of the messages that you received in your household growing up, the better you are going to be in the moment of being able to make a decision, and better able to make a decision in the moment as to, you know what, I'm gonna decide to stop. I'm gonna put some of this away, or I'm going to choose to not finish my meal because I've had enough. Undoing years of conditioning from both diet culture and also from your family of origin is a process. I hope that you liked this video, and if you did, I always appreciate a like. Be sure to check out that free resource below, and I will see you back here soon.